Hello and welcome to another episode of Authentic Leader TV. I am your host, Amber Ludwig of the AuthenticLeaderAcademy.com, and today's topic is one that is super popular, and it is how do I start writing a book so that it doesn't take a ton of my time but really showcases my expertise in the best light. What do I do to get started? What's the process like? And then usually there's a scream after that. So that's what we're going to tackle today, is all about the book writing process. And this is, if you go out there and just do a Google search, every author or publisher or developmental editor, they're all going to have different suggestions for how you should write your book, or, stay on schedule for writing, how you should develop your chapters. I do encourage you, of course, to go out there and do your due diligence and start learning from a lot of different experts in this field. I've done a lot of work with different developmental editors. I've read a lot of books out there. I've written a book. I really feel like I have a sense of how to save you time and effort and energy when it comes to writing your book, and that's what we're going to dive into today. So let's start from the beginning. You want to write a book, but that's about all you know. I would really encourage you to spend some focused, keyword there, focused time. Maybe it's first thing in the morning, you grab a cup of coffee, you don't check email, you don't check Facebook, you don't make any calls, but you sit down for a good 3 to 4 hours. Find a block of time where you can do this. Put on some music that makes you feel creative but not stressed, that you don't have to hype yourself up too much. Just kind of get in your Zen place, get in your zone. And during that time, I want you to bring out a piece of paper, and I want you just to start free flowing, free writing. And I want you to write around the topic of, what do I stand for? What is my message? What do I want to be known for? So for example, you know that my key topic right now is authentic leadership, and I'm all about it, obviously. Not only do I do these episodes all around authentic leadership, but I have the Authentic Leader Academy, and there's a lot that I'm doing because that's what I believe the world needs most, is more authentic leaders. And so when I sat down and did this exercise, I really thought about, okay, there's a zillion books on leadership out there, and authenticity is not a new word. So what do I stand for? What do I want to be known for? Why is this such a personal and important topic to me? And I dug deep. And once I came up with an idea of, oh yeah, because I want the world to be a better place. Well, you peel back the layer of the onion, and what's beneath that? Why do you want the world to be a better place? And what's beneath that and beneath that, until you can for sure say that you have hit the number one core reason why this message is so important to you and what you want to be known for. Believe it or not, if you do the work right now to find this out, you will have a book that people want to read, that inspires change, that's going to actually make an impact. Something like, I just read a statistic, I feel like it was 80 or 90% of books out there are just okay to good, but very few books out there are great. Now, there's tons of books being published all the time now, so you have to keep that in mind too, but a very small percentage of books are memorable and great and shareable. And I want yours to be a book that everybody buys, that they keep referring it, they buy it for Christmas presents, it's just they keep promoting it for you. And that's the kind of book that I really want you to have, but you first have to get clear and do the work on what your message is and why you want to be known for it. Once you have that idea in your mind, the next exercise, which should probably be done on a later day, so that, I want space in between these exercises. That way you can really process and get clear and get energy ready for the next exercise. But the next exercise that I would do, and I tell my coaching clients this all the time, pull out a piece of paper, and I want you to make an outline or a content plan. And here's what I mean. Take your overall topic. So for me, let's say it's authentic leadership or online business support for authentic leaders, something like that. Then I want you to break your topic down into the top main categories. For me, my main categories are branding, websites, content, list building, social media, and product development. When I really racked my brain one afternoon to come up with everything that I know about the online world. And what does it essentially break down to? It's those 6 categories. I couldn't break it down further than that without starting to sacrifice kind of the message and my beliefs around this message. So what I want you to do is that same exercise. If your topic is, relationship coaching, well, what makes up a good relationship, or what are the elements of it, or what are your beliefs around relationship coaching? Maybe communication is a big one, or intimacy, or whatever it is, whatever your main categories are. It's important that you write that down, because that's going to be the essence of the book. Those are going to be the pillars upon which your book stands tall. Now, as a sidebar to this, what I love about the content plan is this plan is really all you need to build your business online, because you can take those 6 areas, let's pretend you have 6 as well, 6 areas, and that can become your free ebook that you give away on your website when people opt in for your email list. It can be the foundation for your signature speech on the 6 ways, 6 areas to focus on to build your business online, for example. It can become the foundation for a 6-week online course, a membership site, your coaching process, your blog topics, your video topics, your podcast topics. You could run a summit around that. You can do anything once you have this content plan written. So this is seriously important work, and it's such a great exercise, and it's going to make your life 10 times easier moving forward in your business once you have this outline. From there, the next step that I would encourage you to do is, once you have kind of those 6 main categories, I would encourage you to start browsing other books. The most popular books in your industry. So for example, mine is obviously business and entrepreneurship and leadership. What I did is I went to the bookstore, I asked my friends, what are the best books that you know in these topics? Went to the bookstore, scanned through the aisles, bought a ton of books online, and I scanned through them. Some of them I read them much more carefully than others, but I was looking for, what's the format? Did they have a bunch of short paragraphs? Did they have long sections? Was the book more bullet point based? When did they expand? Did they have case studies or stories, and what kind of stories, and how did they back that up with their points? Did they have call outs? Did they have exercises? Did they have all of it? And really study the format and the flow and the point of the book and how the chapters are broken down, because what I want you to do is really think about the things that you like about those books, and then you can use that to structure your own book. Because a book is more than just the words that go into it. You have to think about, it's got to be really easy for the reader to read. You should have headlines and, or examples, stories, really help drive points home. If you have an at a glance section or a summation at the end of your chapters, again, it totally depends on the kind of book or genre that you have or the kind of book that you want. But these are all things that you need to think about and do your homework ahead of time. And the nice thing too is that even if you go to the bookstore and you're looking through all of these things, you may not be able to make an immediate decision of whether or not you want this certain aspect in your book, but dang sure your subconscious is going to be thinking through it and developing that book in your mind while you sleep, while you work. So the point is to do regular research and keep kind of building that muscle up, and that book is going to be so much more effortless when it sits down to time to actually start writing the book. So again, what we're going to do is look at, what do you stand for? That's one exercise. Then we're going to break your topic down into the primary categories, which is the second exercise. The third exercise is obviously just to go out there and do some research. But then basically at that point, what I would do, and this is what I just did fairly recently for the book that I'm writing right now about authentic leadership, is I sat down and I really tried to think through how many chapters I wanted to have in my book, and then what those chapters would be about. Now for you, you can take the second exercise I talked to you about, and if you broke your topic into 6 topics, 6 categories, if you will, that can become 6 chapters in your book. And maybe you want to have an introduction, maybe you want to have, some sort of a conclusion that's got a different kind of topic, or the what's next kind of chapter. So you can really start to think through what flow makes sense for your book. So it has that beginning, the middle, and the end. Now, I would not sit down and write a whole entire detailed outline for your book. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you have 10 chapters in your book, write chapter 1, topic, chapter 2, topic, chapter 3, topic. And literally it should almost look like a bullet list of just the general topics that you want to talk about in each chapter of your book. The next step that I would encourage you to do is contact, and you're going to have to do some research on this one because this is a really important part of this process that most people don't know. But what you want to do is contact a developmental editor. This is different than a copy editor who's going to check for typos and grammar errors, okay? This is somebody different. If you get somebody who says, I'm an excellent developmental editor and I'm an excellent copy editor, that might be true. There's always an exception to the rule, but try to get somebody separate. That's my encouragement for you based on my experience. But a developmental editor is somebody who's going to sit down with you for a couple hours, 2-3 hours, and they're going to talk you through the process, the development of your book. They're going to look at your outline of chapters and they're going to listen to your vision. Why do you want to write this book? Who is it for? What are you thinking? But then what they're going to start to do is they're going to start to bring all of their experience from helping with zillions of books, reading zillions of books, and they're going to be able to help you fill in the gaps. They're going to be able to say, well, have you thought about this? Or do you think these chapters should be flip-flopped? Or oh, what if you start, each chapter with a case study and then you tie it in the middle, you do this whiz-bang thing. And then at the end, oh, it'd be really cool if at the end of each chapter you did this one thing that, could set up the next chapter. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be a different conversation for every book out there, depending on who your developmental editor is, etc. But I really encourage you to spend time, a lot of good time, finding the right person for you. Because just like in any industry, right, there are people out there who say, oh, I am a great, relationship coach. But really, maybe they're not. So it's important that you go out into your community for the people that you really, really trust. And you ask them, Amber, who do you recommend? What developmental editors do you have in your network that you trust, and why do you like them? Why do you endorse them? I have 2 that I constantly refer, and if you would like to know their names and email addresses and websites, I'm happy to send it to you. Just go to amberludwig.com and click the contact button and send me an inquiry asking for my contacts for my developmental editors. But I can tell you that well worth the money that you're going to spend. The costs are going to vary depending on experience and who you request or who you have an appointment with. I would encourage you not to skimp here. If this is a book that you want to sell 10,000 copies of, or however many copies of your books, 50,000, 100,000, okay, want to be realistic, but if you have high ambitions to push this book and push it hard, then spend $500 or $750 or whatever it ends up being to get with somebody who really knows what they're talking about, because this developmental editor is going to help you solidify the entire framework for your book. That's how valuable this is. The next step from there is after you've had this meeting with your developmental editor, you should have a pretty solid idea of the structure for your book. But at that point, what I would encourage you to do is flesh out the outline for your book. And this time, maybe you write a page or 2 about each chapter, and you just bullet points, okay? You don't have to start writing the book. That's not what I'm talking about. But for example, if your topic is social media, okay, and this is the chapter on social media, then I would think through, what do people want to know about social media? What's my audience want to know, or my one reader that I am targeting? What do they want to know about social media? Well, they're confused as heck about what all the different networks are, why we have to be on all of them, what the point is, what the differences are between each of them. They want to know how often they should be posting on social media, what they should be posting on social media, how to get more engagement. You get the point. And what I would do is I would kind of just outline the main things that people want to know, and you can even do subtopics under that just to give yourself, when you're in the flow of writing this outline, you want to give yourself some reminders of what you want to cover. That way, when it comes time to actually writing the book, you make sure to cover all of those items, and you know you're going to have a really solid, complete book at that point. So flush out that outline. I know that when I did mine, it took me a full day. I'm talking from I woke up in the morning and got coffee, and I worked on it well into the evening straight. I took no breaks. I was just like a machine that day. It was awesome. Don't you love those days? But anyway, so I sat there and I flushed out the entire outline. Then here comes the next step. Once that's done, you probably want to give yourself a little bit of a breather. I'm not saying you have to do all of these steps inside of a week. You know, for me, it's taken many months to kind of go through this process and make sure I'm on point at each stage of writing this book. So the next step that I would encourage you to do is create an online course that you sell to your audience, and it's going to take them through the outline of your book. And that's going to, so let's say if you have a book that's going to be 7 chapters, guess how many modules you're going to have in your online course, or how many weeks it's going to be? 7. And what I would do is set up a page on your website that outlines what you're going to be talking about in each module, and then invite everybody to a live webinar. And during that live webinar, you're just going to talk about these 7 areas and what they are and why they're so important to this overall goal. And then if they want to get access to the how, if they want to work through that process with you, then you would like to invite them into a highly interactive live 7-week course for X dollars. And you can decide that dollar amount. Maybe it's $500, maybe it's $1,000. If you're valuing 7 weeks of your time at less than $500, question that. Because I want this to be a process that it's worth your time, and you're kind of getting people in the right mindset that, hey, this is going to be a very valuable course, because really this is part of your legacy. This is part of your life's work. I mean, this online course that you're going to take people through is all about transformation. It's all about getting results and testing the material and getting feedback and, you know, making sure everything is in alignment. And that's going to be the content for your book, okay? When I did my course, I sold out in less than 36 hours. And here's the important thing. You want to put a cap on how many people go through that online course. This is not a huge money-making opportunity. Yes, you'll make money to cover your time, and that's important. But this shouldn't be the, I want to make millions off of this launch. Think of this more as paid market research for you, and you're going to get paid for it. What I would do is I would max the class out at 10 people, because I think that more than 10 people is just going to make it harder for you to get those one-on-one interactions with each of the participants. It's going to be harder for you to get feedback and make adjustments to the course along the way. And you just don't want that. You want to dig in with these people and change their lives. That's what this course is about. So you're going to sell your online course, and then I would do a live Google Hangout on-air webinar every week, or just a Google Hangout, where all of your participants come in, and it's private, so it's not open to the world, and you give the course material. If you have handouts, homework, exercises, whatever it is, group sharing time, you know, so you just want to make sure that you're making this course the best that it can be. You're giving your best material. Now, when I went through and I did my course, here's what happened. I created the book outline, I fleshed it out that Sunday, like I mentioned, and then I sold the course. I did not create each module or the handouts, the exercises, none of that. I didn't create any of that before I sold the course, because I knew that the course was going to have subtle shifts each week that I went through the course based on where the participants were at, what they were falling behind in, what they struggled with, what their questions were. I wanted to be on my toes to readjust each week to make sure that they got the transformation and the results that they ultimately needed. So I would encourage you to make your content each week instead of trying to get it all perfect before you sell it. That's not the point of this. So I made the outline, I sold the course, and then I did a call each week with those participants. And the morning before the call, I had about 4 or 5 hours, I think, and that's when I fleshed out my outline for the day. I looked at their feedback from the last week. I thought about anything else that I was missing that I wanted to add into the class. I created my exercises. I thought of my homework, and I did all of that the 5 hours before the live course, so it was fresh in my mind. And then I delivered the content. I kept taking notes of the feedback. At halfway through the course, I sent out an evaluation. I sent out an evaluation before we even began that I think was 2 or 3 pages long. And then I asked for an evaluation at the end. So I was regularly, every time, checking in with them, gauging the pulse, making sure that they were getting that transformation, that the content was clear, that I was delivering things in an organized fashion. So that's your online course. But here's the beautiful thing. You're going to work your tail off during that course. But when you're all done, all of those sessions will have been video recorded, and they're going to be sitting in your YouTube account. That's why I use Google Hangouts on Air. I love that. And they're sitting in your YouTube account. Then what you can do is download those videos and send them over to a transcription service provider and ask them to transcribe the videos into a Word document. Okay, and have them break it up by video so that you have 7 different Word documents, for example. It's just going to be easier when it comes time to writing your book, in my opinion, to do it that way than have one long document. So now you have all of your outlines, you've worked with your developmental editor, you've done your 7-week online course, now you have the content in Word documents ready to rock and roll. And then, are you ready? Now it comes time to finally sit down and write the book. Now this isn't to say you're not allowed to start thought jogging or brainstorming or getting in the habit of writing or taking some creative, writing classes or anything like that. Of course you can start this earlier, but this video is all to teach you about the most efficient way to write a book in my experience, okay? So now we have our transcriptions. I would open up a different document for each chapter, put the title up there, and I would start fleshing out that chapter based on my original outline, the more detailed one, against the transcriptions, and I would kind of reorganize and flesh out that chapter. Now, in terms of how quickly can I get this done, or is it better to do it in block time, or should I write a little bit each day? Completely up to you. Everybody is different. I know that Brendan Burchard, when he goes out to write his books, block time, baby. He blocks out 3 to 4 weeks and just nails it and sits down and gives that book everything he's got. Because Brendan doesn't have, a half hour every day to go out and do, write a book probably. I mean, he's traveling all around the world, constantly speaking, constantly doing videos, providing unbelievable service to his audience. And so it's easier for him to knock it out in focused block time versus doing a little bit each day with all of the other things that he has going on. But I know plenty of people out there who write an hour every morning before they start work, or whenever it is for them. It's important that they do little, regular writing instead of just doing the block time. For me, I'm all about block time. When I get that inspiration to do a video, I usually don't just do one video. I try to knock out 3, 4, 5 videos when I'm really in the flow of it, because I don't know when I'm going to be this energized to do video again. It could be a day or 2 or a week. I don't know. I mean, because your environment changes, your life is changing. So it works better for me to do it in block time, but just try it and see what works better for you. Maybe a schedule is going to work better for you, or block time, up to you. Once you have your chapters fleshed out, you've read them all several times, you're feeling really good about the state of where your book is at, then it's time to go back to that developmental editor. Now, it's up to you and the relationship you have with that editor and what their suggestion is to you in terms of how regularly you're checking in with them throughout this process. But in my opinion, I mean, if you are on a tighter budget, write out the full book, then send it to the developmental editor if you want, and see if there's anything else that they would recommend tweaking. Or even better, if you can, write out, I don't know, 1 to 3 chapters, send it to the developmental editor, and make sure that you're on track with your tone and your format and your delivery. Then that's going to give you the encouragement and validation to finish out that book strong. So I do think that that developmental editor is going to play a role as you continue to write out the different chapters of this book. But when you're all done, you've written all the chapters, you've read them a bunch of times, you are sick and tired of looking at that book because it's like completely consumed you and frustrated you. It's the most incredible experience writing a book because of all of the different emotions that happen, and you're pouring everything of yourself into this book. It's going to be an incredible process for you and 100% worth it. When you're all done with that book, though, then it's time to go to a copy editor, and that's the person who's going to read through your book and make sure that the grammar is spot on, typos, and they may even make some suggestions of this paragraph makes more sense over here and this one makes more sense over here. They might do some bigger restructuring, but if you've hired the developmental editor, your copy editor's job is going to be 1,000,000 times easier. The mistake that most authors make is they write the entire book and send it to a copy editor in some other country where English isn't their first language. I mean, it's just not the best way to do a book. And if you don't send it to somebody who, if you send it to somebody who does speak English and is very good at their job, well, that doesn't mean that you've developed the book correctly, and they may look at this and think, oh, this is a disaster. You're all over the place in this book. There's no flow to it, and it's written in the wrong sequence. And you don't want to hear that news after you've just invested hundreds of hours into writing this book. That's the beauty of having a developmental editor and why that investment is one of the smartest investments that you can make in your book, as long as it's the right person. The copy editor at that point is going to go through your whole book with a fine-tooth comb once or twice, depends on how much work your book needs. You might have to go back and read through it again. So you'll have that kind of relationship, and you'll work on that for the next month, maybe 2. I mean, it depends on your schedule and how quickly you can get back to them. But then your book is ready to start through the print process, and that's really not what this book is about. But you're going to get the pages formatted and designed, you're going to get the cover designed, you're going to decide if you're going to go traditional or self-publish or some sort of a mix in between the two, and you're going to create your launch plan. You should absolutely have a launch plan. And just as another side note here, you should be promoting this book months before it's published. Don't do what everybody does, which is just nuts, and wait to start promoting it once it's printed and in your hand. That is nuts. You do not want the kind of disappointment that comes when you haven't promoted at all, and now you're so excited for people to buy your book and nobody knows it exists. You have to take time to build that momentum. And again, that's not what this video topic is about. We'll cover that in future videos, I'm sure. But you want to have a launch plan in place so that you can go out with a bang and sell a ton of books and hit #1 bestseller on Amazon, and then use that as a launch pad from there to then push out a product launch or sell an academy or a live event. There should be something else associated with that book. Again, that's not what this video is about, but I want to give you those tips in advance anyway, because I care about you and I want to give you as much value as I can during these videos. At this stage, I would love to know your feedback. I know we covered a lot of information, and you are seriously awesome for sticking in there with me as I went through all of it. I'd love to know about the book that you think you have in you. So make a comment below. Let me know what you're thinking for your book and what tip was a really big aha moment for you during this video. Help me share this on social media or subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want more valuable information like this. In the meantime, I just want to thank you for your time, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks a lot.